My name is Joanna Salinas. I am the outreach coordinator for the Waukesha County Green Team. For those of you who might be unfamiliar or new to us, we are a volunteer-based, nonprofit 501c3 organization, and we're focused on promoting environmental and economic sustainability in Waukesha County communities. And we do that through education, collaboration, and local action. And for those of you from around the country or even internationally, Waukesha County is located in Wisconsin, and we're right outside of Milwaukee, so right in that southeastern portion of Wisconsin. So we work with residents, businesses, schools, municipalities, and organizations. And I'd really like to thank Laura Laux, who is our volunteer coordinator for the Waukesha County Green Team, as well as a sustainability professional, for putting this program together, along with Celeste McMickle. Celeste is the Director of Client Solutions for the True Zero Waste Certification System with the U.S. Green Building Council. Whew, I got through that, Celeste. And we'd also like to thank the Wisconsin Sustainable Business Council, who really helped promote today's program for us. The way we are going to work today is that I'm going to ask everybody to stay muted, and your cameras can be on or off, whatever you prefer. And if you have questions anytime during Celeste's presentation, you can type those questions directly into the chat. And Celeste is going to allow about 15 minutes at the end of the presentation for questions and answers. And you can type them right into the chat, either privately to me or to everyone, because other people may also have the same questions. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Celeste. Hi, Celeste.
Hello, Joanna and everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. I'm calling in from Brooklyn, New York, and we're having a pretty massive snowstorm here that started yesterday and is continuing today. So I'm in full February mode here in New York. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we can get started. Can everyone see that okay? Yep, okay, great. All right, so it's wonderful to be with you all here today. Thank you for the lovely introduction, Joanna. As she said, my name is Celeste and I work for the U.S. Green Building Council, focused on our True certification program, which is a zero waste certification. Just a little bit about me. I'm actually an architect, trained as an architect, and I worked in the design and construction and sustainability certification space for buildings for about 10 years, specifically doing a lot of LEED certification work. And now I've been working in the waste industry for about the last 5 to 6, 7 years. And the reason that I got involved with working in the waste, or as we kind of like to say, the materials management space, was because when I was working as a LEED consultant, I just saw a lot of challenges in the waste industry. It was something that a lot of our projects were struggling with and needed solutions for. And so it was something that was exciting to me to get involved with. And when I learned about True, it seemed like a really good fit. So I've been with the USGBC for coming up on 2 years now, and I'm excited to tell you about what we're working on. So many of you, I'm sure, are very familiar with LEED and the USGBC. You know, LEED is, of course, our primary program that you're probably the most familiar with. But what you might not be aware of is that we have a number of other various sustainability related certifications. And I really like this slide because it breaks out all of the different certifications that we work on, which cover a number of different facets of sustainability. And of course, today we're going to be focusing on the True program, but you know, there's a lot of other stuff there. Something that you're interested in, feel free to reach out, and we'll definitely dive into more of the specifics of True. But just for a little comparison, you know, LEED, of course, as you can see, LEED and ARC, both in the waste sphere, also deal with you know, materials tracking, but it's really more of that. It's more of a tracking support tool, whereas True really is goal oriented towards zero waste. So that's kind of the difference there. I really like this slide because it demonstrates LEED certifications over a 20-year time frame, which is, you know, you can see kind of at the beginning of the program to where we are about right now, just moving into 2021. And this is exciting because True is a relatively new certification with the USGBC actually, and we're kind of following a similar trajectory. We've been part of the USGBC and GBCI team for about 4 years now, I guess coming up on 5 later this year. And so you can see we're really kind of following the same trajectory, and we really believe that True is going to do the same thing for the materials management sector that LEED did for the building industry. So it's an exciting time to get involved. So yeah, TRUE stands for Total Resource Use and Efficiency, and we'll definitely dive into more about what that means. But before we get too much into it, I always just like to kind of create a little bit of the story around why we're talking about waste. And I'm imagining, since all of you signed up to be here with me today, it's something that you're interested in and maybe already fairly knowledgeable about. But just in case it's a newer topic for you, I always like to touch on the fact that, you know, zero waste and the waste industry is really important because it's actually a large contributor to climate change in a number of different ways, but a big part of it is because of the production of methane that happens in landfills. And it's also an opportunity that the plastics industry has to create more plastics because there's less use of the fossil fuel industry as things turn towards more renewable solutions. And so plastics is one of the directions where that material is now going. And so we're really seeing that the climate change issue has a big impact as it relates to waste. Also, if you think about the amount of material that is trucked and shipped around the world, I know here in New York City, we ship our waste all over the country. Many parts of it go to the Midwest actually, and also the Southeast and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of carbon impact on that and just general environmental impact as well. So this is just to touch on how the recycling industry kind of relates to the materials management industry. As you can see, of course, the US started recycling in greater frequency starting in, you know, around the 80s. But the issue that we're seeing with recycling is that on its own, it's not doing anything to divert that material from landfill. So our landfills are filling up. They are, as shown on the previous slide, contributing to climate change in the form of methane and other reasons. And it would be great if recycling was the solution that fixed all of it, but it's just not right now. So there's really other solutions that are needed at this time to continue the conversation to really make a better impact. And the other thing that I just like to highlight is the social justice and equity issues that are associated with waste management, especially on a global scale. This is something that we see here in the US, but also around the world as well, which is a tendency for especially the US and more global northern countries to ship their waste to the global south as we talk about it. So things like materials going to China, to Southeast Asia, India, even South America, things like that. And that there's just a huge social equity and justice issue with that as well. So the good news is that, and there's going to be lots of good news today, so don't worry. But one of the pieces of good news is that this is something that consumers are now aware of. And it's something that we are demanding our companies to have more of an impact and more work in. And so, you know, I think our role as consumers, or, you know, even on the producer end, is to really help change the conversation with these corporations to actually make a difference. And at what point, you know, they really start doing something about it. And this ties really directly into that, which is called the wasteberg, which you can see on the slide. For every ton of waste you generate, there's 71 tons of industrial waste that are generated before that product gets to you. So, you know, on the consumer end, of course, what we do is important, but really the major change needs to happen from within the industry itself. And that's really what our work is pushing for. So what is zero waste? This is a great question, and probably something that many of you have an answer for, but it's possible that your answers may vary based on what your exposure and experience to zero waste might be. And this is important because it's one of the reasons why the USGBC got involved with this certification. something that the USGBC has always done very well is take sustainability concepts and turn them into action plans that are consensus-based and have a clear direction and clear result. So a good example of that is LEED certification, right? 20, 30 years ago, a lot of people were talking about the building industry and talking about green building and sustainability in building and what that meant. But without a clear consensus over what green building was, it was very easy for there to be confusion in the marketplace, even potentially greenwashing in the marketplace, even if it's unintentional. And so what we did is we developed the LEED program, right? So this is kind of what we're seeing in the zero waste industry right now, which is something that is a little bit newer. It hasn't been as much of a conversation starter until recent years, but now it's something that people are talking about a lot, right? We see like zero waste influencers and on Instagram and companies talking about zero waste to lifestyle, but or zero waste to landfill, excuse me. But if there isn't a real clear consensus or definition of what that zero waste really means, then again, it's very easy for that ambiguity to exist. And so what we wanted to do with the USGBC was make sure there was a clear set of guidelines and end result for what achieving zero waste really meant. So we'll talk a little bit more about how we got to that point. Again, some of you may be familiar with this slide, the zero waste hierarchy of highest and best uses and this upside down triangle. This was actually developed by ZWIA, the Zero Waste International Alliance, to again help to work on that definition of zero waste. And what this really indicates is that there's more to just materials management than downstream concepts such as recycling, composting, and landfill, right? Those are at the very bottom of the triangle, but it's actually what most people think of when they think of waste diversion. They think of that end use, that downstream. When in reality, you know, when I was growing up, when I was in school, we always had the 3 R's we would talk about reduce, reuse, and then recycle. And it was the reduce and the reuse that were actually the more beneficial strategies, but somehow it's that recycling that's really become pretty pervasive in the way that we think about waste diversion. So what this zero waste hierarchy does is it really informs the conversation and redirects it back towards these more environmentally preferable uses that keep materials in their highest and best use for as long as possible. So an example of that would be just a plastic water bottle, right? If you have a plastic water bottle, what you could do to keep it in the hierarchy for longer is just reuse it as a water bottle. You could just reuse it as many times as possible. And that would keep it out of the downstream. Eventually you may end up recycling it and then that does kind of end its highest and best use and then it becomes downcycled. So it's really about keeping materials in that higher up on the hierarchy for as long as possible. This also gets into the conversation surrounding the circular economy, which is another one of those kind of catchphrases that you may be hearing right now. The circular economy, of course, as demonstrated by this slide, is an economy in which we are reusing our materials to make new products rather than our current system, which involves us taking raw materials out of the environment, making them into products that we use and then dispose of, and that disposal material becomes pollution, such as a landfill, such as plastics ending up in the ocean, and so on and so forth. So we're really seeing a cultural shift where a lot of companies, individuals, government jurisdictions are really pushing to move from this linear economy to the circular economy. And that's exciting for many reasons, one of which is that it's actually also a huge job creator. And I think from this slide, it's really interesting to see kind of the breakdown in the job creation that happens with these different stages of the circular economy. With a landfill, for example, there's really only one job there. With recycling, you can create several hundred jobs. With composting, it even goes beyond that. And so if we start to move in the direction of really redirecting things away from the landfill and the linear economy towards the circular economy, there's a huge impact for job creation. And that's one of the things we're seeing like in the Green New Deal right now. So how does this all tie into true certification? So there's been a lot of this conversation around zero waste and what it means and the zero waste hierarchy. And what the USGBC wanted to do was really translate this into an action plan that would be available for companies. So it is a third-party zero waste certification for facilities, which aims to use the zero waste hierarchy to transform the way businesses manage their resources and drive them to a circular economy. So it's taking everything that we just looked at and translating it into a certification program. The goal of all true certified facilities is that they will divert all solid waste from landfill, and this is important, also incineration or waste to energy and the environment. So what this means is that our goal is that all of our facilities are going to have that diversion for not just landfill, but also incineration, which is, you know, sometimes a strategy that people use to get to zero waste. They'll say there's zero waste to landfill. Oftentimes that really means that incineration is a big piece of it. For social justice issues, air quality issues, and some other reasons, we have chosen to include incineration and waste to energy in the landfill aspect of the diversion conversation. So True takes that same zero waste hierarchy, and it has developed a certification based on taking these different elements and turning these ideas into actual credits that can be used as a roadmap to get to certification. So we'll look at this in more detail, but the idea is that we have a whole redesign section in our rating system, and within redesign there are a number of credits that address different ways that facilities can redesign their operations and systems thinking to move towards zero waste. So we really have turned this zero waste hierarchy into a rating system that translates into a roadmap for facilities to get to zero waste. Of course, because we are using this hierarchy, we're really focusing on upstream ideas as being the primary driver. This is a little different from if some of you are familiar with like LEED certification. It kind of places a different emphasis rather than investing in large scale like energy or water saving systems. Our program is really more about rethinking those internal operations. And the great news about that is that it actually drives a lot of savings for the organization, because we always talk about how, you know, it's not just wasted materials, it's wasted money and it's wasted time. And if there's inefficiencies such as garbage that are designed into the way your organization is running, then that's actually, that's a waste. You know, that is wasted money that is going towards diversion, towards hauling, things like that. And those dollar savings can be translated into, they can be redirected into reuse and redesign and things like that, which will actually save your company money in the long run. So one example of that is, and we have lots of examples, but this one I like because it just has a really powerful number behind it, is Toyota, which is one of our companies that are working towards certification. They're not quite there yet, but they had a great recycling program for their shipping materials. They had, materials that they were boxing up into cardboard, sending to another facility. That cardboard, once it was received, was packaged up and recycled and sent away. Great, right? Pretty typical for a lot of companies out there. But when they started working with True, they realized that there was an opportunity, instead of using this cardboard recycling program to ship materials, to have a returnable and reusable shipping process. And so what they did is they replaced that cardboard material with these reusable shipping containers, and that one change not only saved 2.7 billion trees, but over the life of this project so far, it's also saved them over $1 billion in packaging cost savings, which is huge, right? That's real money that we're talking about. That's a change within operations for materials management that has incredible impact on the bottom line. And that's exactly what we want to see from our facilities. That's the goal for True. It really supports that triple bottom line. It's not just an environmentally based decision. There's also social justice impacts on the positive side, and there's financial impacts as well. So True is really going to support the company's opportunity to become a leader in the environmental realm, to engage, stakeholders, consumers that are invested in these issues. And of course, it's going to have an impact on that bottom line, as we discussed. And our companies really love working with us because we have an impact on all of those issues that we just discussed. We really do help our companies save money, save resources, energy, reduce greenhouse gases, all these things, that job creation that we talked about. There's a lot of opportunity for True to really have an impact, not just on the waste diversion of an organization, but on the overall ESG impact sphere. So a little bit about the nitty gritty. So similar to LEED or some other certifications that you may be familiar with, we do have 4 different certification tiers associated with various point thresholds: certified silver, gold, and platinum. To go along with that, we do have requirements for True certification. I know there's a lot of information on this slide, and in general, I should say that I believe that this webinar is being recorded, and we can also send these materials out after the fact. So if there are slides that you have questions about or didn't have a chance to read through in their entirety, don't worry, we can definitely get that out to you. And I say that because, this slide in particular does have a lot of information. The real takeaway that I want you to have from this slide is number 2 on here. So that second check mark where one of our requirements is an average of 90% or greater diversion from landfill, incineration, and the environment for 12 months. So that is kind of the big ticket item in our rating system, is this 90% or greater diversion. Of course, the goal is to get to 100%, but as in many rating systems, 90% is really that performance tier where you enter the opportunity to play in the rating system and to participate. We do need that 12 months of data that shows that 90% has been achieved on average over that year. In addition to that 90% over 12 months, we also, third check mark from the bottom, we have a requirement to submit 12 months of waste diversion data that is to be used as a baseline year. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the 4th one from the bottom, is the 12 months of data for a baseline year. So we do require 12 months of baseline data and then 12 months of 90%. That baseline data is really more a tracking tool for the companies themselves to be able to just keep tabs on where they're at and where their opportunities for diversion might be. I'm probably going to leave that there for now. We can come back to this if there's more questions on it. But I wanted to talk about this slide, which is all of the different categories and associated points that we have within the rating system. So this is where you really see that zero waste hierarchy translated into actual credit categories and associated points. So as discussed, you can see redesign, reduce, and reuse. They're all right there. And there are points that are associated directly with those. And by going through the rating system, picking and choosing which points are going to be appropriate for a facility, that's going to come up with a roadmap to get to zero waste. So this is something where we don't really expect our facilities, our clients, our projects to come to us and say, hey, we're at 90%, we're ready to certify. We really expect more our facilities to come to us and say, hey, we're at 30% diversion. How do we get to 90%? And the answer is through this rating system. By using these points, by using this checklist, it's going to help you get there. Every step along the way is a step on that zero waste journey. I say that, and at the same time, we have had a few projects that already, had designed themselves as a zero waste business and we're at 90–95% diversion and we're ready to go. But typically, I would say it's really the desire to use this rating system as that roadmap to get there along that process. One other thing that I'll highlight on here is that in the bottom left, zero waste purchasing, that's where we see the most points within the rating system. That's really one of the places where I think that power of purchasing really comes through with helping to lower operational costs and where some of that biggest impact happens in terms of moving things towards the upstream. It's the difference between buying styrofoam coffee cups and switching to a reusable ceramic mug. That kind of thing. Also on the top right, it's worth pointing out that we have 2 different credit categories for leadership and training, which are both worth a hefty number of points. And that's really because it's totally a team sport. It's something that it's exciting for everyone to get involved with. It's kind of essential for everyone to get involved with, and it makes a really big difference in the success of the program. This slide is just to demonstrate the number of points that we have that focus on the upstream versus downstream. These are, of course, points that are directly related to the zero waste hierarchy. So it doesn't include the things like training and education and things like that. But as for the actual points that are associated with that hierarchy, we are heavily weighted on the upstream side of it, as discussed. This slide, again, a lot of information, but this is just a snapshot out of our rating system. That's all it is. I just think it's kind of helpful to be able to see what it looks like once you're in the rating system, which I can also absolutely send out after this panel. It's also available for free in our on our website, which I imagine my colleague is putting into the chat right now. But you can see with these different credit categories how those credits actually break down per section on the left. And then on the right, that's just an example of the write-up that we do for each individual credit within the rating system. So we try and be really clear about what the intent of the credit is, the requirements, the strategies, and the documentation. So it's really that roadmap to success. As far as eligibility is concerned, we are meant to be a flexible program that is allows eligibility across a number of building types. And I can say from personal experience that really we do see all of these different types of facilities coming through. We have museums, we have higher education, we have commercial office buildings, we have manufacturing. We even have a park that just registered, which we're really excited about. Will likely be the first zero waste certified park facility, which is very exciting. And as I said, it is a facility specific certification, but at the same time, we do have portfolio approaches. So we have a few campuses, one campus that has gone through the process, a couple other campuses that are going through the certification process as we speak. So there is some eligibility there and flexibility. We also have True for events, which, you know, not as many events happening on a larger scale, more individual events like this, which you can make zero waste on your own. But once we, you know, see the end of COVID and everything like that, we hope to see more of that zero waste event action. And then we also have a construction pathway as well. We're coming up on 200 projects, which we're very excited about. And I should also mention we are a global program. This slide actually probably needs to be updated. I believe we now also have Brazil and South Africa on here, which are not highlighted. So I'll have to get the updated version to all of you as well. And this just highlights some of our big players that especially have certified multiple facilities and often on a global scale as well. One other thing that I wanted to highlight is that now, in addition to just a flat out certification, we also have a pre-certification offering, which basically is for facilities that have zero waste goals and have taken the first steps towards certification, but maybe they're not quite able to get to 90%. Maybe they have some sort of ESG goal that they're hoping to hit, but they're not going to be at the zero waste performance at that time. So we have pre-certification, which is basically an award, a certificate for taking those initial steps towards certification. And the idea is that, you know, then the next year maybe they'll actually get there. But it's a great thing to be able to take to upper management. It's a great team building exercise to be able to say, hey, we got true pre-certification, we're on our way. It's something that can be communicated to the public as well. And then, of course, if there's a facility that came in and certified at silver and later they want to upgrade to gold or platinum, we have a recertification pathway as well. So on all the steps of the journey, we got something for you. We also have a new offering called LEED Zero, which I would encourage you to look up more information on. What I'll be speaking about specifically is that we do have a LEED Zero waste pathway, which is achieved for any LEED certified building that also hits True Platinum. You are awarded a LEED Zero waste designation. There's also LEED Zero for net zero energy use and water use. But for the True side of it, we cover the zero waste component. This is actually, we currently have a free sign up for this right now on our website, so I can definitely send around some information on that. I would also just encourage you to get involved with us if you're interested in learning more. We do a lot of education and training. We have core concepts webinars, community calls. We do these kinds of events, lots of ways to get involved and learn more, including becoming a true advisor, which is a great opportunity for anybody that wants to learn more about zero waste in general, and also that wants to get involved in true certification specifically. The true advisor is a little bit, it's kind of similar to the idea of a lead AP, but with the True Advisor, it's actually an online module program. So we actually provide the full training for anyone that's going through the program, and you sign up, you can do it at home, you can do it with your coworkers, and you go through all the modules and you learn about a lot of different zero waste metrics, you know, bin right sizing, how to conduct a zero waste audit, really important information for your zero waste journey. And then of course, we also do specifically go through the True program in more detail. And it's pretty essential and helpful for any facility that's looking to go through the True Advisor or through True certification. We also have students that go through the True Advisor to add something to their resume, people that are looking to switch careers. We have consultants that offer the True Advisor as a service. So it's really a great opportunity. It's also a global program. We have True Advisors all over the world. We hit the 1,000 mark in 2020, which we're really excited about seeing that momentum. And then of course, the True Advisors are really the ones that are on site, making it happen at events, at facilities, helping again with those audits, doing all the great work that needs to happen for a successful zero waste project. So we love our True Advisors, and we would certainly encourage you to reach out if you have any questions about that. I see him at about 1 o'clock, so I have a few strategies that I thought might be interesting and a few case studies. So I'll try and get through those in the next 10 minutes or so, and then we can jump into some questions. One thing that I just wanted to highlight, I like this series of slides. Everyone's pretty familiar with the idea of a waste audit, right? It's kind of about going through your trash and recycling, and if you're composting, your compost, and figuring out where everything needs to go, making sure there isn't contamination and that kind of thing. The idea of a zero waste audit is different, because in a zero waste audit, you're actually analyzing, why do we have these materials in the first place? Why do we have so many styrofoam coffee cups? Why do we have so many water bottles in our waste stream? And is there a way that we can actually just eliminate those materials from being in our waste stream altogether? What sort of internal policies and strategies can we implement to redirect this waste towards a more reusable model? Obviously, this is going to be probably an aspirational goal where you're no longer having any of these bins altogether. And, you know, I would argue that I love compost. I actually have a background in composting as well. But, you know, of course, using the zero waste hierarchy, you know, food reuse and donation and things like that are going to be better options than composting. So that's where that systems thinking really comes in. And similarly here, the idea that if you're doing a waste audit, it's usually going to be at that downstream end of the cycle, where if you're doing a zero waste audit, it starts with the people that are actually, you know, creating the waste in the first place. This is a slide that, again, it's small, so I can send out a better version of this, a PDF or even the Excel. This is an example of one of our diversion tracking spreadsheets that was used for a True certified project. I like it because, again, I know it's probably small and hard to see, but the takeaway here is, if you can see, it says diversion calculation, and then underneath it, it says zero waste diversion calculation. So one of the ways our facilities are actually able to get these numbers and get to 90% is because they're putting those upstream policies into their diversion calculator. So you're not just relying on what's in your recycling, what's in your landfill, and if you're composting, what's in your compost. You're also saying, okay, what did we reduce? What did we reuse? And how much savings are embedded in that impact as well? Because a lot of time, from a purchasing perspective, if you had a recyclable material that you take out of the waste stream because you're switching to a reusable model, that might actually have a negative impact on your diversion number, right? All of a sudden you're removing, like that cardboard, you're removing that cardboard from your diversion numbers. So it might actually make your landfill look like it's going up. So what we want our projects to do is to actually take that material that they reduced, and that goes into your diversion number. Those are more impactful measures that you can take, and they should be recognized, and they're part of your tracking towards true zero waste. So just a couple examples of some of our STAR projects. And this is just a small sampling. We have a lot of projects and clients that we're really excited about and that we love working with. Sierra Nevada Brewery has a couple of different locations, and they were actually our first true platinum project, have a phenomenal diversion rate, do a lot of really cool stuff with composting, of course, being a brewery. They also have a restaurant that is part of that as well. They've just done phenomenal work with their diversion. The Soldiers Memorial Military Museum in St. Louis, Missouri. It's really phenomenal. Obviously, they have a challenge in the sense that they work with the public. Most of the people coming to the site are going to be the public. So that creates a lot of opportunity for education and training, which is really exciting. I tried to get a couple of good Midwest projects in here. Postie Cards is a printing press. It's actually I believe our first printing press. They've done phenomenal work with really showcasing how a facility like this can achieve zero waste and have phenomenal sustainability strategies embedded into all of their operations, including having solar panels and things like that. They've also pursued LEED certification and some other sustainability goals as well. Shumash is a very cool example of a casino. They were actually awarded they were a recipient at Green Build for their phenomenal efforts working within the zero waste sphere as well. Their hospitality, of course, so there's a hotel, there's also gaming, a lot of flexibility in the type of work that they've done. Westbourne is a restaurant in New York City. It's a tiny little space, and they actually designed zero waste into their philosophy. And so they were actually one of sort of the rare projects that came to us and said, hey, we're already a zero waste operating facility. We'd love to move forward with True. And so it was really cool to see them apply the rating system to their operations, and of course, as well, also being a restaurant. And then Green Build, our international expo, is a great example. They've certified for True for Events a couple years in a row. This year, of course, was virtual, but we expect next year, hopefully, to be back in person. We'll see how that goes, and expect that if that's the case, they will be True for Events as well. So again, we just like to think of ourselves, redesign, rethink, reduce, reuse, and go beyond recycling with True. And feel free to contact us with any questions, and I'm happy to see what you guys might have questions on. So thanks so much.
Wow, thank you so much. That was amazing information. That was great.
Yeah, it was a lot of information. I understand.
It was a lot, but
yeah.
It was a great overview. And yes, we will definitely send out the slides presentation after this, so you all can go back and peruse. And there was a lot of great statistics. For me, that one with the tonnage of post-consumer waste versus the industrial, was amazing. Like, that was eye-opening to me, because we often don't think of that, right? Yeah. So, okay, so a couple of questions for you, and there's more coming in. So as I navigate these, please be patient with me. David had a question about how this program, how do we see the True Standard supplanting the Green Masters program that we have in Wisconsin? And so Laura pointed out that Jesse is on the call today. Jesse, are you here? And might be able to answer that. So Jesse is the program manager for the Green Masters program here in Wisconsin. So.
Hi, I'm here, but I just heated up my lunch, so I missed the question.
The question is, do you see these True Standards kind of supplanting, or how do you see them meshing with the Green Masters program?
I think they're supplemental. I mean, the Green Masters program is an overall program that helps businesses assess how they're doing in sustainability, and we take a really holistic approach to that. So, we ask questions about waste, but we also ask questions about other environmental metrics, community metrics, governance, workforce. So it's a much broader, holistic approach, and we ask people. I think last year I actually added the question about True certification to our program. So really the way I see our role is to help businesses understand what tools are out there for the projects and initiatives that they are focused on in their business. So it's really, you know, more of a collaborative type of approach.
Yeah, I totally agree. And hi, Jesse. We do know each other. Yeah, thanks for being here and thanks for jumping on. It's great to hear your voice. Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's a complementary approach. You know, I think again, True is also pretty specific, right? It's like just dealing for the most part with materials management. So it complements really nicely with other sustainability goals. And it's, you know, it's an independent certification, but then it also has this training True Advisor that goes along with it. So it's a nice complement to other sustainability credentials or certificates that you might be pursuing, but it really is, yeah, meant to just highlight that one issue and work hopefully alongside other sustainability metrics.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
well,
thanks for the question.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jesse. We didn't mean to like surprise you with that. So enjoy your lunch. So we do have someone joining us from Ireland today. Welcome, all of our people from around the globe. And the question came up, so we saw your map with lots of international people and companies doing this. And so the question was, is it available in Southern Ireland?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. We're fully global. We do have a few projects in Europe. We have one in the UK in London, Etsy, an Etsy facility. Etsy headquarters is here in New York, but they have another facility in London. So that is certified, but we do not yet, I believe, have any certifications specifically in Ireland. So I would love to chat. I can go ahead and pop my email into the chat if you want to reach out with any questions for the True Advisor or True certification specifically.
Great. And then another question we got from Thomas, what are the top kind of 1 to 2 areas in which to focus to make progress towards zero waste? Is there, you know, like some specific areas to focus on? And so in other words, is it packaging? Is it styrofoam cups? That might vary from, you know, industry to industry.
Yeah, I think it does vary a lot. I think it's actually, as far as first steps, it's way less specific than that. Actually, I think when you're making those kinds of decisions, you're really in the nitty gritty of your specific facility's goals. But I think really the best place to start is like a zero waste audit. I think that's really, like, if you don't know what's in your trash, if you don't know what's in your recycling, it's really hard to make decisions. So I think really starting with some of those like basic steps of making a zero waste goal, doing a zero waste audit, you know, even just doing an analysis of the True rating system to really see what opportunities there are. I think really starting with like the more big picture and then working into the specifics is going to be a good recipe for success.
Excellent. And actually, those are all the questions I got. Does anybody else have questions right now they'd like to ask Celeste while we have her on the line? If at this point, you could probably unmute yourself and ask, or you could type it in the chat again. So, oh, there was one I missed. So when you were kind of going over all the different industries you're working with, what about healthcare? Do you have some healthcare, hospitals, industries working?
That is a great question. I actually don't think we have any healthcare facilities that have gone through True at this time. I think that might be a missing ingredient. Susie, feel free to jump if you're still on. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, yeah, I don't think we've done one of those yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have, Celeste, myself, and our colleague Stephanie are working very hard with all different types of industry sectors because healthcare is just one where there's some challenging waste streams. But the closest that we have, and it's a confidential client at this moment, but is pursuing True that's related a little bit to healthcare, is a pharmaceutical company.
Yep.
So that's kind of, you know, we hope that with any of this, as you get like a link in a supply chain, that it starts to sort of affect that whole ecosystem. Yeah. But that's the one where we have a little bit of success at the time.
Yeah. Thanks, Susie.
And is COVID kind of throwing a wrench in the thing? I saw there was mention of all the masks and the PPE, and that's got to be difficult for businesses to be dealing with that.
Yeah, I think that's definitely created some challenges for our clients. It's one of the reasons why I think actually the pre-certification has been particularly successful in 2020. It's when we launched it and we had a lot of clients jump on it because they had zero waste goals by 2020, and a lot of them might have run into issues with being able to get there. But at the same time, it's kind of had this interesting opposite effect because it's really brought waste up into like the foreground of a lot of conversations, whereas before it maybe wasn't as high on the list of things that people were looking at or talking about. And I think we've just seen a lot more interest and engagement in the waste sphere. And so bringing in those conversations of reduction and reuse, I think has been really beneficial. And we've seen some really creative solutions for our clients and, you know, continued registrations and certifications. But yeah, obviously with everyone, it's created some challenges, and a lot of our facilities, like their operations went down, or they had, you know, limited staff in their facility or something like that. So we've just tried to work with those that were under certification and going through the process on like an individual basis. We also came out with some COVID like safety pilot credits. So credits that address like the management and handling of waste and things like that to protect janitorial staff and that kind of thing. So we've seen some creative solutions. It's obviously had an impact, but I don't really feel like it's necessarily slowed anyone down.
Excellent. All right, so another question just came in. Do most true facilities find monetary savings by going through the certification process? And if so, could you give a few more examples like you did with the Toyota ones?
Sure. Yeah, I think that's usually one of the best impacts that comes out of true certification, is that it really does have a big impact on that bottom line. And if you think about it, I mean, just in the most basic sense, that is because when you're throwing materials away, there's hauling fees associated with that, right? So if you have a zero waste plan and you're getting a hauler pickup once a week for your trash and your recycling, and you're able to go down to once every other week or once a month, I mean, even just reducing your waste in that capacity is going to have an impact just on your hauler costs. So regardless of any sort of like internal operation purchasing things, it's actually going to reduce those costs, which can be substantial, especially for landfilling. Those costs are just going up and up and up. So that's a big one. And I think right sizing your trash collection has a really big impact as well. You'd be very surprised to see how much bin right sizing needs to happen in a facility, analyzing where those waste and recycling bins are, how often they get full, how often they're picked up empty. That can honestly, restructuring your collection agreements is one of the credits that we have. And it's one of, like, I would say the heaviest hitters in terms of like a reduction in cost off the bat. Other things, of course, are going to be, you know, the upstream side of purchasing and things like that. If you have a purchasing plan for dining ware, for silverware, for plateware, for cups and things like that in a dining hall or in a break room. If you have the ability to have a dishwasher that's maybe not being utilized, or a dishwashing service that can be brought in, there's going to be a pretty immediate impact in switching from a single use or even a recyclable item to that reusable. So I think those are some pretty big examples. Also, just things like going paperless as an office. You know, a lot of companies already have done that, but if you haven't, it's a real opportunity. Grass cycling, food donation. There's so many examples of ways that we get rid of our materials and pay to have them taken away, versus ways that we can either reuse them in-house or give them to people that actually want those materials. And they all have not only environmental benefits, but cost-saving benefits too. Yeah, and I agree with what Laura just put in the chat as well, that the upstream management has a huge impact too. The buying, yeah, the buying, the paying to buy and then paying to throw them away. It's just like, why are we doing both? You know?
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so if an organization is interested in moving towards zero waste, what do you suggest as a very first initial step for them?
Yeah, I think they could reach out to me and say hello. That would be great. I would love to say hello. Yeah, I think, reaching out and making contact with the team is a great first step. We have a ton of resources on our website. We have our rating system. We have a true planning tool that we just released, which I think is going to make a huge impact. It's basically like a scorecard that you can go through and mark off whether or not a credit seems achievable or not. So you can say like, yes, no, maybe. That's going to be a really great way to kind of like gauge where your facility is at. The True Advisor is also a really good place to start if you want a little bit more of that education-based learning to sort of like understand what's involved. So checking out the resources on our website would be a great first start, and reaching out to us for more questions. We also have tons of case study examples and project profiles on our website that you can look at to kind of get a sense of what other facilities have done. That would be a good way to start too.
Do you notice any trends in organizations for like an urgency to move towards zero waste, or are a lot of organizations kind of apathetic towards it?
I think the waste and materials management world is becoming a bigger player in the carbon, greenhouse gas, and sort of like fossil fuel reduction goals. So I think it's something that we're really seeing for companies that already have those kinds of goals. If materials management wasn't a part of it, it's starting to be. So it's becoming a much bigger issue for a lot of our companies. I think sometimes they can be a little slower to get involved with the waste side. They might be focused more on energy reduction and carbon offsets in other areas. But I will say once they get involved with waste, it's like a wave. Like once one facility goes, they all go, because they just see, again, like the cost savings, the environmental impact, it's huge. So honestly, it is sometimes one of the later players in the conversation, but once it starts, it keeps going. So, which is also why we love talking about it, because it's like people don't always think about the waste streams. It's not always at the forefront of the conversation. It's been a little bit of like the Cinderella of the environmental movement in a way. But I think Cinderella is finally having her day. So
Excellent. Good. So I apologize if any of you are hearing noises. I have a dog who wants to go outside here. So there's a little bit of whining going on behind me. Celeste, how did you get involved in this True certification process, and what does it mean for you? And what do you love most about your job?
Oh, great. That's a lovely question. Well, yeah, like I kind of said at the beginning, I was working I'm an architect, and I was working in lead consulting specifically, and just general sustainability for buildings. And I also was living in New York City. And I think I just continued to see that trash was just everywhere, and it was a really hard thing for people to understand what to do with. And for my project teams, they didn't have great like construction diversion numbers. They didn't know where it went. I could see people in my community, there was, the plastics conversation was coming up. It just was this constant issue, like just trash everywhere and people not knowing what to do with it. And I like finding solutions for things that are challenges. And so I got really excited about working in the trash world, and I ended up doing a lot of work with composting, actually, because also on a personal note, I'm a gardener. And so composting had also always been something that I was fascinated by. And I started to learn more about how you could do that on a more community-wide level, or even a city-wide level with like municipal compost pickup. And the more I learned about recycling, and the more that I got involved with kind of materials management and like the move away from plastic movement, it just really appealed to me. And then because I came from like a lead and architectural background, when I found out that the USGBC had launched a zero waste certification program, I really wanted to get involved, because it just felt like a really good melding of my interests and skills and background. And I actually went through the True Advisor because I was like, cool, I want to learn more about this. True Advisor seems perfect. So that's what I would recommend to all of you as well. But then for me, I went through the True Advisor, and then I was kind of looking around on the website to see different ways to get involved, and there was a job posting. And so I was like, oh, great, I guess I'll just do that then. So it kind of came full circle for me. And, you know, I've been involved with the USGBC since about 2006. So pretty much since the start of my professional career. But this is, you know, the last couple of years are the first time that I've ever actually worked for the USGBC. And it's just been a really nice, like, circularity, actually. So, and I just love it because I get to work with so many amazing project teams all over the world, work in this issue that I, you know, find incredibly important and really help on a solutions level to, you know, get other people excited about it and make a difference. So it's been a phenomenal experience.
Well, your passion certainly comes through, and enthusiasm for it. It makes me want to like jump into, you know, the True Advisor program, to be honest.
Do it.
Yeah. Stephen, do you have your hand raised? Do you have a question? Yes.
Yes. Is there any kind of regulatory incentive to participate in this program, either on a state or federal level, or in any of the other countries where you operate?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that's something that we'd like to see. We'd like to see things move in that direction. Right now, internally with the USGBC, we do have an advocacy team that focuses on working with municipalities, governance, things like that. We haven't seen a lot of movement with that for True or for the zero waste movement in general. I think one of the things that we're seeing with the new administration in the White House is that plastic waste specifically, I think, is going to become a much bigger issue. And there's actually some bills that are in the House right now that focus on waste reduction and specifically on plastic diversion and reduction. So I think, you know, I don't know if that's necessarily going to be specific to True exactly, but I feel like as these cities, as countries start to develop stronger goals in terms of climate goals, waste is going to be one of those. And so, like, for example, me in New York City, we have a zero waste by 30 goal, which is a bit of a stretch maybe, but True is an example of how we could get there, of how businesses could implement strategies that would help them get to zero waste. So I don't know if we're ever necessarily going to see True written into those specific guidelines. That would be great. Maybe we'll get there, but I think it's a great metric to use in support of these goals and is a clear pathway for how it can actually be achievable. I hope that helps.
Thank you.
Yeah. And with that, our time is just about up. If there are no, oh, there is one more question that just came in. I'm just reading it. Oh, there's some information in here from Ruth about U.S. hazardous waste regulations that are requirements to have waste minimization programs.
There we go.
So there are some state regulations.
Yeah, so an example of how this would be a program that would support those greater goals. Yeah, I think that's the best way to kind of translate that. Thank you.
Absolutely. So, well, I can't thank you enough, Celeste. Oh, Liz has her hand up. Liz, go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, Celeste. So I was just curious, to what level small businesses have been engaged in this certification?
Yeah, we have a lot of small businesses, actually. That little restaurant that I showed you, Westbourne, is a tiny little business. You know, they just have one facility. We have in Susie's region, actually, she's worked with a bunch of small businesses to bring it forward. You know, we have projects that go with one site or maybe two sites or things like that. Of course, we do work with these more global scale organizations, which is fantastic. But I think like the small businesses are kind of the heart of any program, right? They really drive things forward and the benefits are there for everybody. So it doesn't really matter if it's a small business or a large business. It's going to be the same result either way. And I would definitely encourage you to check out our website because we have a bunch of our small businesses that are written up. And thank you. Yeah, Susie just popped one of them into the chat as well.
Thank you.
Oh. All right, so I can't thank you enough, Celeste. This information has been wonderful. Thank you, Susie, for all of your support, putting all these links in the chat. We will attempt to capture all of these links in the chat, and we will, when we send out notes and the presentation, we will try and get all of these out with them. But please, please do not hesitate to reach out to Celeste. Her contact information will be in that email, or reach out to the Waukesha County Green Team. And thank you to Jesse for hopping on and answering questions from the Wisconsin Sustainable Business Council. And this has been great. I hope you all have a good rest of your day. I hope you're not all getting snow like we've gotten and Celeste is now getting. So, yeah. But with that, thank you all and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Joanna and Laura, and thanks, Susie, as well. I really appreciate it. It was great to meet all of you.
Everybody, bye-bye.